The SANS Institute, the most trusted source for computer security certification training and research. Visit SANS.org to explore their full curriculum and latest training offerings. In control of cyber risk with Tenable.io, the first vulnerability management platform built for today's elastic assets like cloud, containers, and web apps. Discover a fresh, asset-based approach that prioritizes vulnerabilities while seamlessly integrating into your environment. And improve ROI with the first elastic licensing approach based on assets, not IP addresses. Tenable.io delivers the data and context you need to secure your elastic attack surface. Start your free Tenable.io trial today by visiting Tenable.io. Synapsys is the leading provider of solutions to protect ERP systems from cyber attacks. Customers can secure their SAP and Oracle business-critical platforms from espionage, sabotage, and financial fraud risks. Visit them on the web at onapsys.com. The Threat Connect platform enables organizations to identify, manage, and block threats faster with threat intelligence, automation, and orchestration, providing security teams a platform to unite their people, processes, and technologies behind an intelligence-driven defense. Threat Connect helps increase visibility into networks and integrates with defensive tools to close the gap between threat detection and response. Get your free Threat Connect account today by visiting threatconnect.com/securityweekly. Welcome back, everyone, to Ball's Security Weekly. I'm here with Larry, Jeff, and now Joff is here as well. Joff, say hi.
Hi, Paul. Hey, real quick, huge shout out to my friends in North Carolina. We had a great time this week.
Awesome.
Okay. Good to be here.
Joff, you missed our interview with Hiram, our data scientist from Endgame. It would have been good to have that. You were commiserating. That's fine. Keith Houlitt is still here with us. He's going to stick around for security news.
And Carlos,
Jack, and Jeff are also still here. We got a lot of people to talk about the CIA.
Oh, man. Nice.
Is there any other story this week?
There was.
The best for last?
No, we'll start right with the.
Yeah, I think we need to.
The CIA. Does anyone want to take a stab at summarizing this?
I want to say just right up front, I think Robert Graham had a great rundown of the leak and some of the stuff that he saw and some of the comments there. But go read Robert Graham's stuff there. And I'll summarize as part of some of my comments as the story goes on. Because I'm very much of the same opinion.
Well, give us a start, Larry.
Well, so some of that stuff he was talking about was that very much this hurts the CIA. So one of the things that he mentioned, that one of his friends that works for an antivirus company that was, quote, speaking off the record, so to speak, that there was a piece of malware that they had previously attributed to the Russians or the Chinese that now they can attribute to the CIA.
Oops.
Yep.
Hold on. Let me back up. So WikiLeaks.
Let's just
basically
talk about what do we need to ride this ride?
8,000-page thing. They called it Vault 7.
Yep.
That's apparently where it was filed by WikiLeaks or the CIA. I don't remember exactly which, but. Doug White actually had some great. I tried to get him to stay for the show today, but he talked about it after we did Enterprise Security Weekly, like off air. So basically, to paraphrase what Doug said, he said, "Look, agencies such as the CIA collect information about tactics. In this case, it's hacking tactics." He's like, "This, from what he surmised, was the CIA's Vault 7, right? Mm-hmm. Vault of." Like anything that could be possible related to hacking that could be useful maybe someday in terms
TTPs.
of CIA spying, right? I mean, that's essentially their mission. And he said, look, I'll give you an example. He's like, you could be in a panel. There's some scientists on a panel. Scientist says, one way that we could blow up the sun is maybe this way. And CIA is like there, like someone's like writes that down, like, scientist so and so said at this conference, like, could blow the sun
this way.
Goes into a file.
Yeah, and there was a bit more. They had their user manuals on how do they set up their command and control infrastructure, how do they test it. There was development guides on how should they structure their packets to be able to activate their implants. There was a lot of more information, but. The way I see that we can boil it down to the simplest way of looking at it is, does the information revealed show any misbehavior or any abuse on part of the CIA? No. The Snowden leaks did abuses in terms of, we're collecting information from this group. Yeah, we hacked into this other country. Yeah, we hacked into this telco. Oh, yeah, we went against this Red Cross, or we did this other thing. In the case of the NSA, I see a bit on the moral side of why they released that. In the case of the CIA, there's none. So you're showing tactics, you're showing a tool set from a spy agency, and oh crap, it's used for spying. How innovative. So I do not see where they're going with this. What is their moral standpoint on this, what they're trying to show? Yep. So it's like going to the army and saying, you have rifles and they kill people.
So Carlos, this is very much, so last week we were talking about some of this type of stuff, and I mentioned a book that I am currently reading. It's called Dark Territory. It's like the secret behind cyber war type stuff from the U.S. government, and very much deals with the FBI, CIA, and the NSA type of stuff, and all of the policies that have come from 30 years prior to sort of current state. I'm not done with it yet, so I can't tell you where current state ends, but it's been...
Do you want to know where it ends?
No. I know the punchline, I think, already, but it's called Vault 7. But it's been a very interesting read, given the stuff that's happened over the last couple of weeks. That just it's been very salient information to know and understand the background and the history to a lot of the stuff that's been coming out. And while some of the technical details are wrong in the book, the background behind it is solid from the best of my knowledge, now not being a political person. And that's really where it ties into, is the politics of all of this, and which we don't want to get into necessarily on the show. But it's been very interesting to see. And Carlos, based on that, I'm in agreement that there's no, quote, breach of ethics for some of this stuff. This is what they're chartered to do. These are the things that they're chartered to have against non-domestic actions, and I think it's very much a vital part of their, quote, mission. And the fact that now some of their tools are exposed for us as Americans is potentially damaging as to how we collect that data.
What was the title of that book, Larry?
Dark Territory.
Gotcha.
And
don't forget, I'm in it.
You're in chapter 4.
That's right.
Who's the author? Do you know the author?
Kaplan.
Yep, I'm pulling it up right now. It is Dark Territory: The Secret History of Cyber War by Fred Kaplan.
Gotcha.
If you would like,
I totally just bought that book right then, as soon as you said it, Larry. So
good job, John.
I wouldn't normally read something like this, but it was cyber war, and I'm like, oh, all right.
Cyber. I'm into cyber.
I got Audible credits to spend. I'll check it out, and it's been fascinating.
I like the cybers.
Sorry,
Jack, you were saying?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I tried to make a related point on Twitter, and it didn't come out clear because it's Twitter, and you can't. But so we don't want to. I don't want to excuse behavior based on they were just doing their job, because someone will Godwin this up. So if you disagree with the mission of the CIA, you have a problem with the mission of the CIA. But the CIA is executing their job. And so I kind of boil this whole thing down to, what do I see as newsworthy and what do I see as not newsworthy? What I see as newsworthy is the CIA was breached. I think that's newsworthy. The fact that spies spy and use whatever tools they can is so far from newsworthy that the coverage it's getting makes me contemptuous of even more people than I normally am, which is saying a lot. It's like, it's not news. They're spies, dumbasses.
I said a very similar thing.
Job title.
I covered this story on Tuesday on Hack Naked News before there was a lot more information about it today. And I surmised it the exact same way Jack just summarized it. It's
not there. Now, I will say something. Because it would be political to call it newsworthy or not newsworthy. I will say it is noteworthy the timing of this release politically, given what WikiLeaks has become, and I'm going to stop there because I'm going to offend enough people just by that implication. But WikiLeaks is a political machine at this point in time. If you're following the news and know who went to see Assange today, you know what I'm talking about. If not, you're better off not knowing.
No, hold on. No, just tell us.
Paul and I are
Jack.
looking at it like what?
Yeah, just tell us, Jack. Enlighten us.
So one of the architects of the UK's Brexit thing, Nigel Farage, who then ran away from the idea and then became, I don't know if an ally is the right word, but has engaged the current U.S. White House administration, and then today went to see Assange. I don't know. There's good spy intrigue. There's a good book in there somewhere.
The plot thickens. That's all.
The plot thickens. And speaking of books, I will take another one. Let's go back from Cybers. There is a book called Spycraft. And Spycraft, The Secret History of CIA's Spy Tech, by Robert Wallace. It's an older book. But it talks about, spy cameras and people in Russia doing things. And it talks about double agents and people who get caught risking their lives as double agents. One of the more gruesome ones is a Russian who was supporting U.S. efforts, who was cremated. They just didn't kill him first. But
Not a good way to go.
Yeah. And a whole bunch of people were forced to watch it. But it brings the CIA level stuff into, a tactile pre-computer world into computer world. But these are people in country. It makes it very visceral and very real. And it kind of, I think, helps set up the path to, the cybers.
Well, and it's kind of a good segue into the whole Samsung TV thing that was in these leaks. And Larry, I think your recommendation to read Robert Graham's article on this is a good recommendation. In that he says, with the Samsung TV, they're not remotely hacking into TVs to spy on people.
No,
someone has to be on premise to plug a USB device into the TV to do that, and it's really just. But like, my whole thing, based on what Jack was saying, is if I'm there and I'm on premise, I can certainly. There's a lot of other ways I can put a camera on premise or whatever. Now, a TV is a nice. That's a nice way to do it because I don't have to put an additional device there, and I can rely on the connectivity from that device to do it. And that's if you're going to spy on someone.
That's the way to do it.
That's great. There are other methods, but that's a pretty good method.
Totally less likely to be discovered.
So just remember, the Gruck has said it and others have said it, and it's worth reminding people that if your adversary is a nation state, not only do you have to worry about your Samsung TV, you have to worry about drone strikes and Hellfire missiles.
Ooh.
And how realistic is that in your world? And that's not to dismiss it. This is somebody, I have had arguments with our government dating back to before most of our listeners were alive. Jimmy Carter and I didn't see eye to eye on a lot of things, and that's where, a file that probably still exists on paper, started in Washington, D.C.
Time to file a FOIA request.
Yes. I've been afraid to, but I've got a couple of things have happened.
Oh,
in the
we
past
have to
couple
do
of
it
years.
now.
But I've started throwing money at mock rock, so I have a whole bunch of open FOIA things I can file. But anyway, it's there's a political angle of this, but from the newsworthiness, as Paul, like you had summed it up, and I said, the fact that the CIA was popped, that's newsworthy. That spy is not.
Well,
go ahead. Hold on, Jack.
Was there much detail given to the source of the information? How WikiLeaks got their hands on it?
No, but
there's a lot of speculation.
Sorry.
Hold on.
Go ahead,
one
Keith.
at a time.
Go ahead, Keith.
There's a lot of speculation, at least that I've seen on Twitter. I know that Patrick Gray and the Gruck have talked a lot about how the timeline and the information sounds like and looks like it could be Hal Martin, who was recently caught for the NSA leaks. And that's the rumor mill going around on Twitter. So I honestly don't know the first thing beyond what I've seen there.
the timing does make sense that both Patrick and the Gruck have pointed out that the guy that took all of that stuff home and is now looking at spending the rest of his life in federal prison. And we still don't know if he was an agent or if he was a pack rat. We don't know if he was a digital pack rat, but he didn't secure the data well.
That's the dude with like the
leap? It's a leap. It's an assumption, but that might.
That's the dude with like terabytes of data.
Yeah.
Yeah. From what I understand of that situation, he was the one that walked out the door with a ton of data. Jeff probably has a good comment on this, though.
Yeah, a few comments. Going way back to the very beginning, I wanted to just comment back to Larry. I don't know how we have a serious, responsible conversation about this topic without getting into the politics of it a little bit.
Yeah, no, we can't. We can't on this one, I don't think.
Which we're doing delicately. Nobody wants to become partisan or anything like that. But as Jack pointed out, noteworthy. If it smells like a duck, quacks like a duck.
Farts like a duck, right?
Might be a duck.
Yep. The other thing that I just want to point real quick. I think the thing that I find that's very interesting is that in any case that we've talked about this, and we try to be very world-centric about this, is that we don't talk about this a lot about other governments having this type of issue. It's always the U.S. Sorry, Jeff.
Well, so, to sort of get on the fence between being political and not political, if you look at some of the politics and why the latest WikiLeaks leak is become a big deal, it's all wrapped up in this notion that the U.S. intelligence community has run amok, overstepped its bounds, is doing things on a personal nature for POTUS, the previous POTUS. There's all sorts of variations to a theme. Having worked in that organization, I cannot emphasize enough that there is a culture and a deep amount of pride by the employees there to not only obey the law, but to go to great lengths to stay within the boundaries of the law. Has that been pushed at times? Yes, I did it myself. But always within the context of a greater mission. As I think Jack said earlier, the CIA spies. They have a mission. They do stuff, and most of what they do is done against other nation states, states that are perceived to be adversaries or at least potential threats to the country. I mean, that's true of the whole intelligence organization infrastructure, even though it's changing, it's evolving. Cyber is they're still trying to figure that out. But there's still a lot of people there that are smart people, could have made a whole lot more money probably in the private industry, but they believe in the mission, they believe in the cause, they're patriotic, whatever you want to say. They take their job very seriously. And the very casual and very offhanded comments about the ease and the willingness that these organizations might go to do something illegal is an affront to the vast majority of it. It's offensive. And I wanted to put that out there. And I'm not saying who started it all or who said it the most vocally in a Twitteral sense, over the past weekend. But let's not lose sight of the fact that these agencies do what they do on behalf of the U.S. government. They don't casually do their job. They don't overstep their boundaries as a matter of course. This isn't a whole lot of fictional movies. This isn't a whole lot of mystery novels and things like that.
Look at the fact. There are people that do overstep their boundaries, but you're going to have that in any organization, right? You're going to have that in any situation. You can't control everyone down to the letter. And also, I think with fits and starts, the policy of the United States in terms of spying, privacy, cyber war, whatever, has gone through lots of changes, right? There have been times where maybe it's even not someone overstepping their bounds, but maybe they're following the law, the guidelines, or regulations, and they're too lax. And organizations like WikiLeaks or whoever brings that to light, and there's a correction. But I think all of it goes in fits and starts, and to just, I know we stay away from politics, but to say that it's all like political, it's not. It doesn't matter really who's in office at the time.
No.
If you look at it from the perspective of, well, it goes in fits and starts. Now,
Yep.
everyone
Various government agencies, regardless of who is leading those government agencies, have a certain mandate.
But now,
regardless of where you are on
having
the
said that, anyone who's in charge of a government agency or the country has obviously their own agenda, their own way of doing things, and that's all going to be different. And my point is that, it's not just a black and white issue about, well, this president is allowing all this stuff to happen, or that president isn't. It depends on the situation.
Right.
In certain circumstances, there might be some bad things that happen, and hopefully through the course of our government and the checks and balances, that gets corrected. And there's going to be some things where you're like, wow, that person in charge of this agency or the country did something good.
I will bring this back to your day job. It's not necessarily about the politics, about your direct manager that, your manager leaves and you have a new manager and they have a new
way of doing things. That's
things.
A great way of phrasing it.
And Larry,
go ahead.
Go ahead, Keith.
I was going to say, to answer your question as well, there's actually a really good book called The Craft of Intelligence by Alan W. Dulles that talks about the very specific problem that you brought up that kind of generated a lot of this conversation, which is in a free society with a free press, we tend to see a lot more talk about these problems that happen where the U.S. is kind of always pie on its face, and why that is. It's a little dated because it talks about the USSR situation, but a great book for anyone that's interested in seeing kind of the state of things from that perspective.
What was the title again?
It's called The Craft of Intelligence by Alan W. Dulles.
I'm typing that into Amazon right now.
I did exactly the same thing, Larry, and it is available in a Kindle edition, no less. So,
and I hope it's available via audiobook.
There are two quick points I'd like to make. One is that part of this, it all blurs together, and people conflate the behaviors of NSA with the behavior of CIA, with the behavior of FBI, with the behavior of various other agencies. And in my personal opinion, I believe in the past several years there have been barriers that were constructed, in some cases after Watergate, that have been taken down that I would be happier with if they had not been taken down. But to pretend that a data analyst at Fort Meade is the same as a data analyst in Utah for NSA would be a bad idea, much less assuming that an operative in country, pick whatever country you want for the CIA, has much to do with somebody in NSA or FBI. Yes, people do cross the lines. Your local police department has some great folks on it, and there may be that one person who crosses lines sometimes and is a little rough with high school kids. I'm still bitter about that. I want my beer back.
Yes.
But
me too. I want your beer back too.
And it needs to be said too that if we're talking specifically about the CIA, we have a U.S. centric view here, and we do try to have a world view. But if you ask people in Iran or Guatemala or many other countries in the world about the CIA, they don't see it the way we do. And so, this isn't simple. This is difficult. It's one thing for, people confuse the Russian FSB and GRU and who does what internally and externally. But here in the U.S., we ought to at least understand what the guidelines are. Whether or not people cross lines, I don't know. But to assume that the FBI does something because NSA does it is not great.
That's an excellent point, Jack.
And finally, to echo, Jeff's sentiments, even with my political leanings, I know people that are inside FBI. I know people that are inside NSA and have been inside NSA. I know people who I believe are active inside CIA, but they are discreet. But because of the lack of information, it's a case where the shadow draws a picture. And these people are, for whatever this word means to you, they are patriots. My challenges are often with the direction that they're given and whether or not they choose to follow it. But these are people that mean well. Now, the road to hell is paved with good intentions, or whatever other trite shit you want to say. But this is subtle. It is complicated. It is nuanced. And I'll just roll back to the CIA got popped. That's newsworthy. Spies spy, not newsworthy. The timing of this release, that's curious. And the timing of the RAND report, which we really haven't talked about, is interesting too. That was just, it took that long to release that ebook. It's just a coincidence. I'm not that much of a conspiracy theorist, but the RAND report we haven't talked about, which is an interesting thing. And I can't say much because I've only just started digging into it, but that is a report on 0 day. And there are some interesting data in that report.
So, Jack, and I know Paul wants to get this wrapped up, and I kind of agree, but I do want to bring this back to the technology real quick and the hacking and all of this type of stuff. I think that's
the cool stuff we like.
Yeah, and I think this, for me, this has been very interesting as my role of director of research at InGuardians has been really kind of validating in what we do. And I saw some great tweets from damn it, name's escaping me. Dan Tentler and some other folks, and I thought about this, and I was thinking about this and expanding upon it, and it was very much sitting down watching the Today Show this morning at the Today Show. I mean, come on, like general news for sixth graders type of thing. And they're talking about car hacking and TV hacking and this Vault 7 thing. Right. And I'm looking at this and I'm going, validation for what we do. If we think about we talk about this whole end all be all of if someone is attacking your thing and they're nation state sponsored, they could do these things. And I think about the things that were released that I've been able to observe in Vault 7. And I think about a number of the things that were there that either we've developed in-house, I've developed in-house, my friends have developed in-house, my fellow podcasters have developed in-house for TTPs and for tools to do red team and internal penetration tests and external penetration tests. And the things that we have that are halfway in development and that were released with the USB Bash Bunny by Hack5,
which is which is
more advanced than the stuff that the CIA was using, and the stuff that is sitting there in my roadmap to task my guys with to develop that is in Vault 7. I don't know that I need any more validation to know that what I do is right based on what, quote, the nation-state-sponsored attacker is doing than what we're trying to emulate.
Now, when you're watching the Today Show, did they talk about the Apache Struts vulnerability?
They didn't.
Okay, they talked about, I want to talk about that.
They talked about your spying on your TV and the car hacking by Charlie Miller
but
and
not
so forth.
Apache Struts, which has...
So Apache Struts, tell me about it.
It has roots in Jakarta, and for those that have messed with that technology that are kind of old, like I am, no, that's like server-side Java from Apache.
Pre-Node.js server-side Java,
yeah,
right?
like that's server-side JavaScript. This is server-side Java, which when I was messing with that,
what could possibly go wrong?
Exactly? That was
Sorry,
I was going to say.
Could possibly
go wrong? We're all
actually server-side Java was back in the day really, really good and really fun to work. I actually wrote history lesson. I wrote server-side Java applications.
So sorry.
But we never, at that time, there weren't many open source projects like Jakarta that were in widespread use by enterprises. It was mostly, I think the application servers came from someone who's old like me.
Or Jack.
Where did those come from?
I don't know, Paul. I'm not as old as you are, but
it was a commercial. Some of them come from Sun Microsystems, and others came from IBM. Maybe also had some server-side Java implementations. There's people screaming it right now who work.
Tomcat.
Yes,
Tomcat
was in there. That's another server-side Java.
I know because I'm configuring Tomcat right now here.
You poor bastard.
But now Struts is just like a continuation of that. Basically, it's like a file upload vulnerability. Is that right, Carlos and others?
Yeah.
There's a couple of vulnerabilities.
From what little I could read in a Chinese blog, I have to read the Talos one. It looked like a command injection. They were able to inject commands into it.
And there's like a Metasploit payload for it. It's bad. Like, it's ugly. If you write... If you're running this, you're probably already pwned, is basically what I'm saying.
It looked like it was a very easy to exploit bug. One single request, you embed your command into it, and it works. It runs.
Anytime you run a Metasploit module and there's only one payload and it says Linux Universal, it's probably pretty easy to exploit.
Nice, Linux Universal.
Yeah. So that was my link in the show notes. Basically, it's people are reporting that it's under widespread exploitation.
No shit, really.
No kidding, huh?
I blame the CIA. Wait.
I mean,
Sorry.
if we didn't have the CIA story, we'd be talking about how bad the Apache Struts vulnerability is. So I don't want to.
And mainly for Asia, if you start looking at, I know somebody used Chodan and start looking at instances of it. It seems to be mostly in Asia.
Interesting. Speaking of,
we talk about Node.js and Python and Flax because they're awesome and sexy. And Keith, I mean that with the utmost respect, right? But when you start looking at like a lot of enterprise applications, like a lot of them are server-side Java too. My brother-in-law has been a server-side Java developer since I was there, developing like crappy little admin apps that helped them maintain it, right? But that was in like 2001. Like, people are still server-side Java is like a thing that a lot of people use.
Are people still using COBOL?
Probably.
Yes.
I mean,
it's funny. Java is actually the first language that University of New Hampshire teaches its students. I mean, it's still one of those things that is prevalent in universities as well. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah. That was the two languages that we learned in college were C and Java.
Me too.
And largely because
same here.
there was lots of similarities between the constructs.
I hate you guys.
I know.
What is yours? Pascal, RPG, COBOL.
Well, yeah.
Fortran.
So we had RPG and COBOL too, but that doesn't count.
So I was on the same page as Carlos. When I went through, it was COBOL, RPG, eventually got to C, but never had Java. But I guess I'm freaking old.
And Java is very popular.
It is.
I have several developers coding in Java at work currently. In addition to Nassau, in addition to assembly and C++.
My intern loves to program in Haskell.
Oh God,
Haskell. That's a
Yeah.
language.
Is he a wall walker or something?
I love
like
it. The line. You ever watched Silicon Valley?
I haven't yet.
Where they're like at a conference and the girl asks him like, "Do you know how to code in Java?" And he's like, "That's my second language."
Nice.
So yeah, you should like patch that stuff because that's important. IoT Cybersecurity Alliance.
Yeah, I was looking at this article, Paul, and I first loaded it up. I'm like, why the fuck do I care about what AT&T's stock price is at? Oh wait, there's an actual article in here.
Yeah, there's an actual article that talks about how they're. I just find that recently I found a couple of articles, which is great because it's all fuel for my presentation, that lead to.
Now I have personalized barware. Wait. What the hell did you do to me?
Yeah. Personalized barware. How did you get that?
I don't know. Yeah, it was from that page. I don't know what I did, but I got personalized
It's a really
barware.
crappy link in the show notes.
Sorry.
But anyway, AT&T, IBM, Nokia, Palo Alto Networks, Symantec, and Trustonic will make up IoT Cybersecurity Alliance, research and raise awareness to improve security practices emerging in the IoT landscape. I also covered an article on another show that talked about an IoT company that makes IoT systems for vehicles. You'll like this, Larry. Vehicles and critical infrastructure that bought an IoT security company that does security for vehicle IoT systems and critical infrastructure. How about that? My whole thing is like, is the tide shifting? Are organizations and companies really latching on? And my whole thing is, do they see regulation coming? I think especially when it comes to motor vehicles, and Jack, you can comment on this too.
I think the
motor vehicles are a regulated industry already.
Yep.
The fact that now they have computers in them and there's been security incidents, they probably are due to some of the efforts of the Josh Corman and company.
I'm the Cavalry.
I am the Cavalry. Thank you. They're going to have regulations put on them for security. And so here are stories where major companies are putting together cybersecurity alliances. Other companies, this was 2 companies, I think they were both in Canada. IoT manufacturer buys an IoT security company. I think this is the tide finally starting to shift. And I don't think, as Bruce Schneier is putting forth again, that we're going to see a regulatory body just for IoT security. I think we're going to see the regulatory bodies already in place for these industries, and some sooner than others, like motor vehicles, be mandated to build security into their products.
We already seen it. I think California, Utah, and several others have already passed bills or are working on bills, at least on the motor vehicle side, especially around autonomous vehicles. As you mentioned, stuff has shifted. We would have never expected cyber or internet security, hackers, to be something that would be constantly being talked in the Senate, Congress, in the news, and it is right now. So there's a lot more focus on this, and companies are not seeing it like, oh, it is our mission or is something that we should really do to make sure that stuff is secure. It is most like, okay, we have to be careful here with liability, and we have to mitigate possible liabilities that may incumbent the business.
I don't know if it's limiting liability as much as providing guidance on who is liable ultimately. And there's certain companies like manufacturers that probably don't want the liability. So
they're looking to shift liability, you think, Jeff?
Yeah, I think so.
So I will say this about automotive IoT. On my current short list for cars to replace my sad old minivan is a 1974 Lotus Europa. So that's how much faith I have in modern cars.
Wait now. Jack, this is a very much a new bachelor type of man on the road type of car.
It's I've put off the midlife crisis. I might as well do it right. I'm pushing 60. I might as well do it right.
Hell yeah. So I want to, and this is not the first time this happens to me. We're talking about IoT, and I don't know, a number of years ago on this show, I all of a sudden was like, oh my God, you guys got to check out this story about gobbles. And it was like 4 years old at this point. And
Gobbles?
Gobbles. And some Gobbles-based attack that was released on full disclosure and all this crap.
It wasn't Gobbles that hacking group from way back in the day?
Yes, exactly. So I went and added a story to the show notes, and I went back and re-looked at it just so I could start talking about it intelligently. It was allegedly about IoT and VxWorks. And I go back and look at this, and I'm reading it. I'm like, HD Moore releases this stuff about VxWorks, and it's totally pwnable via memory dumps, and the QNX and real-time operating systems and Internet of Things. And I look at the date on the article, and it's July 31st, 2010. Like, fuck, God damn it! But the fact that we were still talking about these embedded operating systems in 2010 with some of the same type of issues.
Hey, think about how Jack and I feel.
Yeah.
That's like a daily occurrence for us.
Is that like incontinent?
The great thing, the great thing at our age is it's actually all new.
Yeah, it is all new. You have to read the whole thing to figure it out.
Oh shit!
The beauty of incontinence is that it gives you a warm feeling that you get to keep to yourself.
Jesus Christ.
Jack, I could say you're full of shit, but I'll just leave that one there.
Not anymore.
Not anymore.
Would that be like hungry for dinner at 3:45 p.m.? Is that?
Because maybe I did. I didn't steal all of the oyster crackers as I left the restaurant.
You had to fight the urge.
Yeah.
Let's be honest.
Get off my oyster cracker.
Are they still oyster crackers if you sit on them? Are they no longer oyster crackers at that point? They're just crumbs?
They're just crumbs.
They're oyster crackers to the old people because then they're smaller particles that they have to chew.
It's soft. Yeah. It doesn't hurt the dentures. We get it.
Gum them.
But the pieces get stuck onto their plates. Moving right along.
What else do we want to talk about?
One for you, Keith, actually, is a new ISACA survey identifies the biggest barriers faced by women in tech. and they are promoting mentorship as the key to recruit women into cybersecurity.
Absolutely. Bring it on. That's one of the things that actually I was asking Jack before the segment if he had gone to see Katie Ledoux talk at B-Side San Fran. And I had the great pleasure of getting a chance to work with her before she gave her talk on making security teams more visible. And she's just amazing at all the things that she does. And the talk she gave was phenomenal from everyone that's told me about it. So I, for one, am a huge proponent of trying to get more women involved if we can. I'm actually working with someone else right now to try and put forward a talk for B-Sides Las Vegas about the care and feeding of InfoSec professionals. So,
nice. No, it's great.
Nice. So I want to offer two words of advice, and it's maybe a little bit politically charged and that type of stuff. And that I hate the fact that we have to note the fact that we have to specifically call out women in tech. And I just want to to have them be tech people. And the fact that I hope that there are more, quote, women that are doing this stuff is great. And in comparison to other industries, I just want more people to be in tech.
Yeah, I want like
their gender.
Like
right, they're people.
Right,
they're people.
Passionate, talented people is who we need in information security.
Right.
It doesn't matter who you are, where you're from.
Age, sex, creed, color,
right, exactly.
religious beliefs.
But I think to expand upon this article, right? I mean, that's part of what Keith is creating is helping open the doors to anyone to be in this field. Yep. And I think it is somewhat specific in the skills and kind of navigation in this field. And there's lots of different places you can go in, and to have a mentor to help you through that really means anyone who has the passion and the skills and the desire to learn those skills can do that, and I think that's important.
And I think maybe this is me, just a personal bias is that you are a human, you can do whatever you want to do.
I completely agree.
And this is the way we've chosen to raise our children, that you're a human, you shouldn't be tied to what the societal norms tie you to, that go do stuff.
Speaking of children, did you see those toys that were hacked?
Which ones?
Spiral something.
The bears?
Yeah, they made a teddy bear.
We talked about that last week.
We did. Did we talk about that?
We did that.
Okay.
With the bears with all their recordings and that stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, the pedo bears.
Yeah, the pedo bears.
The cyber pedo bears.
Cyber pedo bears. Which will discriminate against you whether you're a man, woman, child.
Doesn't matter. They're going to spy on you.
Yep. Race, color, creed, sex, doesn't matter.
That one was a case study on how not to respond to vulnerability disclosure.
Yeah.
Well, Larry, did you have stories in there? Because I want to tee this next one up.
So there's nothing big in there. One was Vault 7. There was one about the WT, the Western Digital Cloud Ponage stuff.
Oh.
They're basically recommending you unplug
All right,
this
so
shit.
what about this story that I had about, which is sure to spark some debate.
Oh, good.
So it's legal to sue internet pirates, but not the way that this person, John Steele, did it. Huh? And essentially, I'll paraphrase from this article, in order to collect copyright violation money, they produced pornographic films, they put them on the internet. Anyone who downloaded them was immediately charged with copyright violations. That was John.
What?
They were fishing for copyright violators.
Yes.
Wow.
Exactly. Yeah. The article.
Were they any good?
Something about they called them Prenda Law porn trolls.
Those people.
Yes, right. Please, Jack. Are you familiar with the story?
Prenda Law has a long track record of things that a lot of us that believe in, I don't know, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness don't agree with. That's all I'll say.
So, isn't that what they called? Isn't that called entrapment? Effectively, what these people did.
I think entrapment. Somebody can correct me. Somebody will yell at their car as I say this, but entrapment generally means law enforcement doing it to you. This is civil.
This is fraud.
Gotcha.
I think they deemed it.
However,
fraud.
The nature of the Computer Fraud and Abuse Act and DMCA really blur the line, because violating a EULA is a crime now, which means that writing software with a EULA in it makes you able to pass laws faster than Congress, which may or may not be a good thing given the state of Congress and software. But
I just thought that was
and
like
the plot thickens.
until robots write all the code, and then we're all in violation of being alive.
And then Skynet becomes self-aware.
Right, exactly.
That ship has sailed. That was 20 years ago.
Yep. So yeah, that's actually kind of scary because I wonder if maybe I've downloaded some of that. Pulled it from Paul's file share
purposes.
Pulled it from Paul's file share for research purposes, right? Yes.
Fair use.
It was fair, all right. So, Paul, what else you got?
Moving on.
185,000 plus Wi-Fi cameras on the web with insecure admin panels. I don't know if that's necessarily news, though.
Really? No way.
Next.
Wait. Let me guess.
There's a wait. There's
plugins.
Yeah, there's a disconnect between security execs. Operations report reveals. Next. Sorry. No,
By email is safer in Office 365 than in your Exchange server.
Oh, all right. Tell me more.
Can't get to it.
Tell me.
I just think this is the whole cloud argument.
Yeah, and now go talk to John Strand and Black Hills about Office 365 and whether or not it's more secure.
Auth and then bypass it.
Yeah.
Right.
What about the whole Amazon outage? I mean, is that something worth discussing as a news item here? Did you guys discuss it last week? I can't remember.
We talked about it in Enterprise Security Weekly a little bit. Jack and I had some conversations last week about it as well because it was a situation, from what I understand, even if you were replicating your data into different data centers, your data was still down. It was back up in 5.5 hours. The question I'll pose to the panel here as well is that downtime acceptable versus whatever downtime you would have if you were managing all that yourself? Should we all go to a hybrid model where some of it's on-premise where we have the control and some of it's in the cloud? What do you guys think?
So me personally, thinking about having to be in a data center, and I was literally, quote, having to deal with interact with that data center for 12 and a half years in healthcare, which you needed to be up 24/7, 365, and the concept of downtime was nearly impossible, which we ended up getting. Given the track record for downtime for AWS services, if you think about from inception to start, I think they're probably really close to 5 nines. And
could you provide better?
Could I provide better? Probably not.
If you're, go ahead, Jeff.
There's not an article. I don't think anybody posted it, but I think it was yesterday afternoon. AT&T suffered an outage on the West Coast
911
for their 911 system.
Yep.
Let's talk. I used to work at AT&T. A 3-hour outage for a company like AT&T is a huge freaking big deal.
Oh my God!
There are heads rolling today, I will guarantee it.
Someone's getting fired.
But I think that's part of the cloud discussion as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, my example was if you're a financial institution that's doing trades and you're down for 5 hours, you're dead in the water. I mean, you could very well be out of business.
Yeah, but when you're 9/11, you literally have people dead potentially.
Yep.
True.
Now that's
not just a euphemism.
If you're dealing with that criticality of the system, you're doing very much what Paul suggested. You're doing a hybrid model. You've got redundancies that have redundancies. I mean,
you're not just relying on the cloud. You're relying on
And depending on what the nature of your financial transactions are, the cloud's not fast enough.
Yep.
Right. I mean, the latency in cloud becomes an issue for high-speed trading, for example. The idea of sending things through a route that takes any extra time is a non-starter. For other things, it is great. And the thing that was significant about the S3 outage was that there were a lot of organizations that thought they had covered replication well. People who had learned from previous Amazon US 1 East outages and had learned the hard way and done things, air quotes, right. And then Amazon had an issue, which, in fairness to Amazon, they tend to be extremely open about what went wrong and what they've done to correct it. They're not always cutting edge on things that they roll out. They wait to see what the market supports and what it doesn't. But when they have issues like this, they tend to be very open about what happened. Their postmortems are, well written. And so this was a case where people who thought they were doing it right, who arguably were, air quotes, doing it right, were let down by Amazon. But then,
let me say one thing.
The number of organizations that have let you down, how many have been as open and transparent about the failure as Amazon has? And that's not to encourage you to spend money with them. I'm just saying, you have to be realistic. If you're running your own data center, do you have enough generation capacity to sustain a prolonged power outage without being out? What happens when the the things that a lot of us that have been in smaller industries, SMB space, when the excavator goes down the street and the arm isn't all the way down and it tears every 100 pair off of the highway that 3 of your 4 locations are on, and there's copper and fiber lying in the street, you know what? You're not down for 5.5 hours.
Yep, 5.5 days might be more reasonable. Mm-hmm. Yep, attenuation by backhoe.
I wanted to make one quick comment on the. I agree with Jack that Amazon provided a very detailed post-mortem. What I didn't see in it, though, or what I would take issue with, is what they described as root cause was more technically what went wrong. I tend to think of root cause as what was the process failure, what was the breakdown in terms of their business operations that led to a technical failure. Now, I admit I didn't read the whole post-mortem, but I read the area around where they talked about root cause, and I saw more of just a technical description of the failure, or what exactly went wrong. So I might be completely mistaken. Maybe they did move on and talk about the process failure, but that to me is root cause, is finding out what's wrong with the way they're conducting business that allows these things to happen.
And in this case, we're going back to cloud systems right now. The root cause for them was that they had an automated system. So they had a recipe that they were pushing through their configuration management system, and somebody mistyped a parameter in it, and it caused the outage. That somebody actually, they had it all automated. Everything was working as it should. It has worked as it should for a very long time, but there was just this one single step that it needed the input from somebody typing something, a command in the command line, and just hitting enter, and he mistyped a value in one of the parameters. And I bet that right now they're scripting parameter validation around that, and they're learning from it. But what I found interesting, outside of the human error that caused you problem in their automated system that minimizes errors, doesn't eliminate them, but mitigates most of them, was that their dashboards for status and everything, the storage of those images that they were using to show the status for that system was stored in its system itself. It was stored in S3. So when you go to the dashboard to see the status of everything, you would actually see that it was still green, and it says, still valid, because it was using itself to monitor itself. So probably a lesson learned is going to be that they're going to move that over probably to another system.
Yeah, system monitoring shouldn't be done on the system that you're monitoring. I mean, that's that's like storing your logs only on the local device or a lot of other things. But yeah, it was Carlos, that was one of the things that was I don't want to say amusing. That was an interesting data point, was that everything was green because they didn't have access to the red icons for the dashboard.
But that's sort of an example. Maybe that's not a process failure, but that's sort of a logic flaw. That's the lack of somebody.
A design failure.
Yeah, I mean, not to pick on AT&T, but when I worked for them, I did a project one time for another part of the company. And I won't even get into the details, but let's just say one of AT&T's major data centers is in Northern Virginia, outside of the D.C. area. Their disaster recovery location, their primary disaster recovery location for this particular project was in Baltimore, some 40 miles away. And I was kind of scratching my head thinking, I've lived in this area my whole life, and if D.C. gets hit with a catastrophic event, a hurricane, some sort of natural disaster, pretty sure that's going to hit Baltimore too. So I just simply raised the question of, you think 40 miles is far enough away to to put your backup facility, your disaster recovery facility? Most people would say no.
I think that there's a lot of good opportunity to point out the people that are doing it right when it comes to things like this, though. I mean, I think of Netflix, for example, right? They have depended, or at least used to depend on Amazon quite a lot, and then they developed Chaos Monkey, and I think they actually open sourced it. To prepare for just this sort of thing where something goes down suddenly and you have all sorts of redundant backups and processes in place to actually fix this very quickly. So it's a good lesson for a lot of those companies that are looking to the cloud to maybe have primary infrastructure and say, how can we do it right? The point comes back to practice, being prepared for these things, having the process in place, and then at the same time, practice so that you are ready for it when it actually happens.
Don't forget to mount your Scratch Monkey.
Very good, Larry. Very good. I want to thank everyone on our panel today. Larry here in studio, and everyone on via Skype, and everyone watching and listening to Paul's Security Weekly. That concludes this episode. Over to Larry. Take us out.
Over and